On September 26, 2013, civilization abruptly ends as a pandemic decimates the entire world. This may seem like the plot of a major Hollywood movie, but is actually the beginning of the PlayStation 3 title The Last of Us. Video games have been around for decades, but it's only been recently that they've begun to take Hollywood to task with their production value and storytelling. I've been a dedicated gamer since my early childhood, all the way through today when I have the time. Developer Naughty Dog has created not only the best title for the PlayStation 3, but arguably the best title for the console generation entirely. I'll go into detail about the storytelling, gameplay, and animation, and explain why it is such a phenomenal game. The Last of Us is a near-perfect cousin to The Road, a literary masterpiece written by Cormac McCarthy. Both present a post-apocalyptic society navigated by two people, a man and a child. The Last of Us is perpetually dangerous and uncertain, and what happened to get society to such a state of decay is not the focus. The focus is the characters at the center of the plot. It is a human story. But unlike The Road, The Last of Us is interactive and is full of the insecurity, hopelessness, and vulnerability that such a situation inherently will provide. Players are cast in the role of Joel, a tired and worn-out survivor who does what any of us could find ourselves doing 20 years after the fall of society. He takes up odd jobs, acquires clothes, food, shelter, guns, and even drugs. He does what's necessary to survive. The Last of Us takes place in 2033. So the stories Joel tells of the regular old world is one that any of us can relate to. Even when he does what's necessary to survive, to include stealing and murdering, it's hard not to still root for Joel. After all, in a dystopian society, morals have gone out the window, and everybody has to do what they have to survive. As fascinating as Joel is, he's not the only character in the game. A young girl named Ellie is the one who truly steals the show. Joel makes an arrangement early on in the game to transport Ellie across what remains of the United States, and so they begin their travels under these forced circumstances. Joel and Ellie take on a sort of father-daughter relationship throughout their travels, which makes all the twists and turns in the game that much more nerve-wracking and tense. The story wouldn't be nearly as powerful, though, without the amazing work of the voice actors. Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson voice Joel and Ellie respectively. And while Troy is a seasoned voice actor with an array of amazing characters under his belt, like Ellie, it's Johnson that truly steals the game. It's no easy feat for a 30-year-old woman to play a 14-year-old girl. But not only does Johnson manage to pull it off, she does it with such conviction and emotion that it draws players even deeper into an emotional bond with the characters. The gameplay allows players to stand up guns blazing, or sneak around using stealth and take out enemies silently. It's completely up to the player. However, being a dystopian world, bullets are rare, and players must keep their resources in mind at all times. Sneaking up behind an enemy and watching his arms helplessly flail at Joel, as he chokes the life out of them, is both disturbing and extremely gratifying at the same time. It's a storytelling mechanism they use that lets players feel the desperation of the situation they find themselves in, and truly makes each enemy feel human. In addition to the regular gameplay is a crafting system, which takes place in real time. This means that you can't go to craft something and the game pauses. You must find a safe place so that an enemy doesn't sneak up on you and kill you while you're preoccupied. This adds to the sense of desperation and situation of the game. There are a limited number of resources in the game for crafting, and you have to keep that in mind as well. It becomes almost torturous when you have to choose between building a Molotov cocktail to kill enemies or a medical kit to heal yourself, because you can't build both since they use the same materials. Do you make a new shiv when you come across scissors and tape because you can't carry any more materials? Or do you pass those materials up in hopes that you find them again by the time you need them again? These considerations create real dilemmas in the game and remind players that every action in the game carries consequences. The story and gameplay alone would be enough to make The Last of Us a contender for Game of the Year. But the animation takes it to a whole new level. The game's graphical beauty gives every action an exceptional realism. Everything that happens is more powerful, more memorable, and more moving because the surroundings are so believable. Cities are creepy, silent, and crumbling. Forests, fields, and meadows are overgrown, dense, and lush. Adding to that beauty is the motion capture they use. Motion capture is still becoming more frequently used with games, but it allows the actor to wear a specialized suit that tracks their motions and movements, giving the characters more natural human movements as well as facial features and sometimes the actor's likeness. The ability to capture these human elements greatly increases the feeling that these characters are real people, making them much easier to sympathize with and become emotionally invested in. The Last of Us is a masterpiece of storytelling, gameplay, and animation that takes its audience on a journey full of human growth, love, and even brutality, and leaves them feeling emotionally exhausted at the end. Games of this caliber are hard to come by, and if there's one game out there that makes it very worth buying a PlayStation 3 for, The Last of Us is that game.